Here in Germany, lawmakers are due to vote Tuesday on big changes to borrowing rules. Chancellor-in-waiting Friedrich Merz and his Conservatives, as well as their likely coalition partners, the center-left Social Democrats, support the measures. But the two parties are relying on the Green Party for the two-thirds majority needed to change the constitution and push through the proposals in Parliament.
Plans are in the works to revolutionise public spending in Germany. Here's what's at stake. A special fund worth 500 billion euros to invest in infrastructure. Of that, 100 billion is earmarked for climate and economic transformation, a key demand of the environmentalist Greens, who have now signalled their support. 300 billion of the fund will go to spending at a national level, while the remaining 100 billion will be reserved for Germany's 16 state governments, and they would be able to borrow more money on top of that more easily. Beyond the 500 billion special fund, the bill allows for other budgetary reforms. Proposals to exempt defence spending above 1% of Germany's economic output from a constitutional cap on government borrowing, known as the debt brake. That defence spend includes money for civil protection, IT security, intelligence, plus aid for illegally attacked states, a clear commitment to financial support for Ukraine going forward. The measures need the support of two-thirds of lawmakers in the German parliament. Right now, the old pre-election Bundestag is still in session, and the votes of the Conservative CDU-CSU, the centre-left SPD, and the Greens would be enough. Once the next German parliament is seated from March 25th, it gets trickier. The left party's votes would also be needed. While they're in favour of more public spending, they don't want to boost the defence budget. The left and the far-right Alternative for Germany both launched legal challenges in a bid to stop the package of measures going through with support from the outgoing Bundestag. They argued the move undermines the will of the newly elected parliament. At the end of last week, Germany's constitutional court threw out those challenges, clearing the way for this vote to go ahead and for Friedrich Merz's Conservatives to potentially form the next coalition government.
For a closer look, let's bring in our chief political editor, Michaela Küfner. Michaela, if this proposal were to go through, it would be hugely consequential for Germany. Explain to our viewers why this would be such a big deal.
Well, because Germany at this moment in time, in transition between the old parliament, which will gather today, and the next government that still has to negotiate itself into government, it feels like stuck in first gear. And this spending package is so enormous, so sweeping. Just for comparison, there's some 500 billion in infrastructure investment alone. The entire German budget last time around was some 480 billion euros. So this is huge, and it will give the likely next Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, the foundation to actually follow up his words of Germany is back and Germany will do whatever it takes to boost its own defence and European defence. It needs to be backed up by money. And that's this cash that now can also be taken on as debt.
But, Michaela, we heard it in the report. Not everyone is happy with the vote. Germany's Chancellor-in-waiting is being accused of ignoring the will of the people.
Yes, there were a couple of more challenges, actually, by individual MPs to the constitutional courts. Those two have been struck down. Friedrich Merz, who campaigned on not being willing to touch this debt brake, is doing exactly that right now. And that's what many accuse him of essentially telling untruths, to put it mildly, to the voters, because he surely must have anticipated that the world was going to change when Donald Trump was elected on the 6th of November. The elections here were on the 23rd of February. And the Greens themselves, in an absolute public dressing down just before they reached a deal on this spending package, said, look, this was the playbook all along. long. We never believed that you were sincere about this. You knew you were going to break your own word. But clearly they backed down from that after getting 100 billion in climate investment and the climate goal of climate neutrality now enshrined in the German constitution, which is an absolute major win for the Greens. And you can even argue that they managed to achieve more of the past week as they face their last days actually being in government. They won't be part of the government in the future than they did over the past 3.5 years where they were in charge.
Now, this plan still needs a 2/3 majority. Do you think it'll go through, or what could stand in its way still?
Well, we heard from individual MPs, also from the likely next Chancellor Friedrich Merz's own conservative CDU-CSU. There's quite a few MPs who will no longer be part of the next parliament. A few clearly had some individual scores to settle, but there have been test votes in the parliamentary groups. So any kind of failure to get this through now would be a major political upheaval, and it would instantly throw Friedrich Merz's future government into crisis even before it was formed. So it's really politically unthinkable. And then there's the second hurdle coming up, the Bundesrat, which is essentially something like an upper house of German parliament. That's where the individual states sit, and there a majority seems to have been secured after that key state of Bavaria said it won't stand in its way. So this should be smooth sailing. Anything else, and we will certainly be talking about this for the rest of this week, because that would be a major blow to Friedrich Merz even before he got going.
Absolutely. And you will be covering it all for us. That was DW Chief Political Editor Michaela Küfner in Berlin. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.